Welcome to the AlmighTees channel. Today we're going to continue with another video in the Screen Printing 101 series. This week's episode will be an introduction to screens and screen mesh, so come hang out with us. We're going to talk about that next. In screen printing, the screen and mesh count are fundamental elements that directly impact the quality of your final print. Come with me out into the shop and I'll show you a basic rundown. A screen in screen printing functions as a stencil. It's essentially a frame with a fine mesh fabric stretched tightly across it. There are two main components of a screen. That's your frame and your mesh. First, we're going to talk about the frame. Traditionally, frames were made of wood, but today aluminum are used more commonly due to their durability, their resistance to warping, and their stability. Frame sizes can be manufactured to most any dimension, but some of the most common are 20 by 24 that are primarily used for manual screen printing, and 23 by 31 used more commonly in automatic screen printing. The next thing we're going to talk about is the mesh. The mesh is the heart of the screen. Very early on, the mesh was made with silk, thus the term silk screening. But today's day and time, we use what is called a polyester monofilament. Polyester is preferred due to its strength, elasticity, and resistance to chemicals. While we're still talking about mesh, mesh comes in what are called mesh counts. A mesh count is measured in threads per square inch. It's a crucial factor because it determines the amount of ink film deposited. Since mesh count is manufactured in threads per inch, the lower the number, the fewer the threads per inch, thus the larger the openings. The more threads per inch, the smaller the opening. Why does that matter? Well, when it comes to the ink film deposited, or the amount of ink deposited, your lower number is going to allow more ink to flow through, and so it would leave you with a more opaque print. Why would you want to use higher mesh count? More threads per inch, smaller openings will restrict the amount of ink and will allow less ink to pass through. So one of the other things that your mesh count determines is your image, detail, and resolution. Lower mesh count is for larger images with less detail, where higher mesh counts are for finer detail. One of the next factors is ink type and viscosity. Lower mesh counts work better for more viscous, thicker inks like plastisol, where higher mesh counts are better for less viscous inks like water-based and certain types of solvent-based inks. If anything I've talked about in this video you would like me to elaborate a little more, please drop it in the comments and we will make a follow-up video going into more depth detail about some of those questions or issues. So the last factor in determining your mesh count is your substrate or your printing surface. Lower mesh counts can be used for more absorbent or rough surfaces like fabric, where more ink is needed for good coverage. When it comes to higher mesh counts, you're going to want to use those for substrates that aren't as porous and where the ink is going to sit on top and you want more control and less of an ink film. So what are some common mesh counts? Let's talk about it. Low mesh counts, which range from 25 to 80 threads per inch. Medium to low mesh counts, which range from 110 to 140 threads per inch. Medium to high mesh counts, which range from 180 to 200 threads per inch. And high mesh counts, which range from 230 to 400 threads per inch and up. One of the other things that I did want to mention in this video when it comes to mesh is what is called thin thread mesh. Thin thread mesh is thinner threads are used in the manufacturing of the fabric, where it allows the openings to be a little bit bigger, more ink to pass through with less pressure. Primarily used for manual screen printing, but also can be used in automatic screen printing as well. What are some key considerations when you're choosing your screen and or your mesh count? Well, number one, are you going to be printing manually, which the 20 by 24 is more prominent, or are you going to be printing on an automatic, which the 23 by 31 are more prominent? What do you want your ink opacity to be? Do you have a darker ink on a light substrate with fine detail and you want less ink film being printed? Or are you printing on a dark substrate and you want more opacity? You're going to want a lower mesh count. Another consideration is what we call in the industry is the hand or the feel of the ink film. A thicker ink deposit, a lower mesh, will leave a more noticeable hand or feel on the garment, where a thinner ink deposit or a higher mesh count will leave a less noticeable hand or feel on your garment. Choosing the right screen and mesh count is critical in the screen printing process, directly impacting the aesthetic and quality of the final product. Many printers keep a variety of frame sizes and mesh counts on hand to accommodate different designs, inks, and substrates. We hope you found this video helpful and informative. How about mash that like button, and why not subscribe to the channel? Comments are always welcome. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.